Hey, beautiful people. Gene Williams here, and this is episode number 12 of Unbreakable Souls. Thank you all for showing up, and let's invite my brother, Coach G, Gary Newsom, into the building. Let's go.
What's up, my man? What's up? Coach G in the house.
Sir, yes, sir. Coach G.
How you doing,
You got,
man?
you got to make your shoulders lift up when you're saying, Coach G.
Oh, my shoulders lifted up.
Coach G.
I don't even be paying attention to that, man, but that's cool. Get my shoulder shrugs in while I'm
You
talking.
know, just get a few in. There we go.
We'll be talking on these hot topics, man. So we might need a little R&R as we're talking anyway. So that's cool.
Right. Facts. Big facts.
You have a good week?
Up and down emotionally, man. And physically. It was a rough one physically because I had a lot of work to do.
Okay.
And also emotionally because just new developments.
Okay.
That we kind of talked about.
Right. Right.
Man, just trying to play that balance and still be authentic in that space is difficult.
Right.
Because my desire is to, as a water sign / air sign, is to become reclusive and get away from people. So
I'm kind of morphing into that, man. I mean, normally I'm the people guy, but really this last year I'm that. I'm more like today. I've been tired, super busy week, exhausting week, physically, emotionally, and I've been in my bed in my room, kind of watching TV and reflected on some things, and had to help some people, talking to some people this morning. But I feel that, man. Feel that.
and still through that, you helping other people heal. Like that's a beautiful thing. That has to be acknowledged. Yeah.
Well, you got to do what I do, man. Got to do what I do.
Well, you don't got to. You choose to. And that's the beautiful thing of it all.
Yeah.
You choose to.
Well, I appreciate that.
A healing vessel, for people. So that's big ups to you, brother.
Well, I just thank you. I live by too much is given, much is required. So I know the Lord has invested a lot in me, and I have to be that vessel. But that's what I was telling my friend this morning is people like us have to learn when to turn it off, though.
Right.
We can't keep pouring and pouring and pour from an empty cup. That, we got to start with pouring the energy and our essence back into ourselves.
Right. First.
First. And then your circle, your household or your people that are important to you. And if there's something left over for someone else after, that's great. But no more 100% depleting. Boy, we didn't went to a whole nother track. We're in therapy mode.
Brother. But and I want to deepen that though. I want to deepen that. What you said was beautiful. But I also want to hard stamp the fact that we have to feed ourselves first, because we can't even feed our close community. You know what I'm saying? Like our family members and whatnot. If we are not full, we actually do them a disservice and do ourselves a disservice when we are not, feeding ourselves first and filling up our cup, and then we have more to give to other people. But if we don't, look at ourselves and, hey, I need this and I need some rest. Like you took a lot of time resting today. Like that's necessary. Sometimes
had to recharge.
Right, exactly. Got to recharge your battery till it's on 100 before I give it to somebody else. I mean,
that was good until it's on 100.
Right.
And actually, man, what we're talking about feeds right into our subject matter for today, because as you said, Unbreakable Souls, episode 12, we're entering into racial trauma today. Woo, what a topic. But, as a Black man in America, when do you get a timeout? So, you deal with this 24/7, 365. When do you get a timeout? And that's why so many Black men are exhausted mentally and emotionally. Then you add post-traumatic slave syndrome into that mix, along with their new and personalized traumas. Yeah. Man, it's just a lot.
Yeah. And then
go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, Black and brown men experience a lot of trauma as it pertains to just the color of their skin, things that we don't have any control over.
Right.
You know what I mean, we may have chosen from the other side, but we didn't understand that when we come here, it's gonna be extra trauma.
Yeah, on steroids. Yeah.
Right. I like that. On steroids. Right. But yeah, man, it's just walking out of your front door sometimes. You never know if you're gonna be. I mean, first off, the first thing that we all, as humans, period, or as animals, plants as well, all of these species, the first thing is survival.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know for sure if we're going to be able to survive with what we've been, allocated in this world based off of just our color alone, not our skills,
Right.
as people, but just the color of our skin. I mean, if I have the skills to do the work and get it done well, in an exemplary fashion, then there shouldn't be anything that's questioning why I should get top dollar. I mean,
right.
Just because you finish.
No, man, you're hitting it. I mean, just because, I don't know, just skin color should have no difference. I was saying you're about to hit into our first point. I mean, this is such a vast topic, and we've narrowed it down to just 5, just for the sake of time. But man, we could talk all day long on this stuff. But the first one we're going to really hit today, you started on already down that path, is police violence and racial profiling. Men of color, Black and brown men, often experience racial trauma due to encounters with law enforcement.
Right.
So instead of instances of police violence, racial profiling, and unjust treatment can lead feelings of fear, anger, and helplessness in men. Just as you were saying earlier, just walking out the door, you're waking up in the morning, you're safe in your home, and really, just as I said that, safe in my home.
Right.
We're seeing that all the time now, that you're not even safe in your own home when it comes to law enforcement. So,
Coach, I had a question around that. It's kind of about law enforcement, but it's not totally about law enforcement, everything. But even though, we come in different shades, we come in different complexions and everything, I can tell you that even to this day, we're in the year 2024, that you can get into certain environments and you can still see certain folks, and I'll use an expression, clutching at their pearls and everything if you walk into the elevator and all along those lines. So I want to know, have you brothers experienced that as well? Because I know that I can be as light and bright as I want to be, and I've definitely gone into an elevator and seen people that have gotten a little bit nervous and a little bit uneasy when you walk into the elevator, and you can see that reaction that they give you, like they figure you get ready to mug them, and you have no intention of doing that whatsoever. But I was just wondering, is that just me, or have y'all had that experience as well?
I'm gonna let you talk on that, Coach G, first. Go ahead. I
got a story to tell, so I'm actually gonna let you go on that one first, because I want to talk on this one. This one is near and dear to my heart, because this is a story I haven't shared with you that it's painful to talk about, but it's powerful and it needs to be shared. So
yeah. So okay. So first off, I'm a big, muscular, tattooed, bald head, bearded, pierced up Black dude in the South.
Yeah.
So I get people,
AKA monster.
Exactly. And I mean, in ways I can be, in the greatest of ways. I mean, monster can be beautiful or ugly, either way, however you perceive it. But yeah, I've had people not hop into, elevators or walk across the other side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just in jeans and a t-shirt, but I still got my tattoos quite visible, my piercings and whatever. And then, bald head Black dude with a beard, it's terrifying to certain lighter skinned people.
Sir, I love how you worded that. Okay. I feel that, brother. I feel that.
But when so the funniest thing though, and I love to do this to people like that, like when they're terrified of me, the first thing I do, hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And they're and then when they hear that I'm intelligent, and I know this is another point we're gonna bring up, but when they hear I'm intelligent, I can actually hold a conversation, an intellectual conversation. They're like, Oh, they're like, you know what I mean? It's a whole different thing.
Well, you're not one of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because
So I'm not
we
supposed
got
to be
classes, we got groups and classes of us.
right,
So
right. Class system. Yeah, I know it
yeah,
does. No,
it
I
definitely
know it
happens
does.
to our sisters too. I always said that, man. I posted that not too long ago. I said the probably the most extinct being on the planet Earth is Black women
Yeah,
because they have no support from anyone.
right.
So, and tragically, some of our Black men have stepped away and don't support our sisters like we used to. I mean, that's a whole nother topic too,
Right.
but
Mm.
yeah, but man, this I think society doesn't understand. I remember talking to a person I dated and understood her point because she was like, have some of these things happen to you? And I discussed some of the things that happened to me personally, but I was just giving examples of different things that I had seen on TikTok or TV or live even, and she just couldn't understand my responses. And I'm like, you have to understand that if it happened to them, just as easily as that happened to them, it could happen to me. So I
Right.
think Black and brown people relate to the incidents on such a high personal level, um, as if it is happening to them, because we have the reality that it can.
Yeah.
It can. You can't sit and hide behind some door or wall. I mean, the profiling things are starting to happen in your own home. You're sitting in your home playing a video game with your nephew and get shot and killed, doing nothing wrong.
Right.
You're asleep in your bed and get raided, and you think it's a robber, and you don't even have time to pull your gun to defend yourself, and you're shot dead in your bed. So I mean, it's just for a man and woman of color anymore. Where are their safe places, and where are you not going to be profiled?
Right.
We talked about police violence and racial profiling, but that doesn't just deal with police officers. It's
Right.
profiling everywhere you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
The grocery
Redlining
store.
and yeah,
Right.
gentrification. I
Right.
mean, you go to a store and people are maybe of Chinese
Mhm.
orientate. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And look at you like you're a thief or something like that or less than, and they treat you as such. So yeah, I've experienced all of that.
Yeah. I agree. So that's to your point, Mark, that you had mentioned earlier. I hope that answers your question. And then the little
No, it
story
definitely
of
answers the yeah, that definitely answers the question. But the other thing I was curious about, and it comes back to what y'all are talking about with racial trauma and everything. But you know, uh, because of slavery and because of the nature of slavery and just because of society in general, we are definitely very much in a mixed society, and definitely there's a lot of racial identity questions that go on as well. So I think that that plays into the trauma as well, because as I know, there are some brothers that find problems and when they decide, even though loving that movie and that certain laws were passed that you could date across racial lines, but now you have to deal with that if you decide to go down that path and all along those lines. And the other thing that I find interesting, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts about this since you come from different parts of the world, one in Kansas and the other now in Memphis and everything. But sometimes the trauma also gets us to not know how to identify ourselves. Because I got some folks that are in that Native American space, and I'm not saying that we don't have Native American bloodline, but then there is some people that want to claim only that part of their bloodline and don't want to acknowledge the African American part of their bloodline. So, and that can
um,
happen a number of things. So that can be part of the trauma as well. So I just wanted y'all's take on that because there can be some serious trauma even in how we choose to identify ourselves racially and
Right.
ethnically.
Agreed.
well, I think that just stems from the experiences that of racial trauma,
Mm-hmm.
police profiling and police violence and the microaggressions and so many other things, the long lasting effects on our mental health that it's now pushed us to a point of extreme
Right.
that we only want to identify with one sect of who we are. And then sometimes that's done out of pride, pride for that race or pride for that part of us, so I see that kind of as a positive, but um, also the negative is that you don't want to identify for the other parts, with those other parts of yourself. So,
Right. And
but
that
I
was
want,
a,
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You about to go?
No. Go. I'm good.
I was going to say, unfortunately, like even the stigma of being, black or colored in this country has been turned into a negative thing. When actually, if you pay attention to not only history, but also the popular trends or whatever, it's all based off of people who look like us. You wouldn't have mathematics and science and history and things of that nature without people who look like us. And I'm gonna say this early because it actually quite disturbs me that a lot of the movies that we put out and a lot of the images and a lot of the commentary and narrative that we put out as a people is still based off of a European mindset.
Right.
From the standpoint that the first thing that we identify with as people who are African and American at the same time is that we were slaves. But you do realize, like, if you actually study history of the world, like the last Moorish empire fell in 1492. So
that we had great culture before all of that, right?
Exactly. I mean, we ruled. We built the entire world. Rome, France, all of those places. We built them. Russia, all of those places. I mean, why in Russia do they still have the Black Madonna? I mean, come on now.
Right.
In France, the priests bow to the Black Madonna in child. So for me, a lot of the racial trauma not only stems from just how we are profiled in this day and age, but also how our history has been denied for so long.
Right.
It disturbs me. And there's books that have been burned in certain countries, but now we have access to them, thankfully, with the information age.
Right.
So now we know that they are.
But we still have countries, and even here in the United States, in particular like Florida, that are trying to deny the history, that don't want it spoken. I mean, it's becoming a point where it's going to become illegal to talk on Black history.
Exactly.
Because they don't want it exposed, and they see that as like an attack. Which that leads me into another point. I know we're still in police violence and racial profiling, but when you look at an officer, so this is what, in researching for the show today, research, I'm just like, you gotta go. I'm looking at videos this morning, and maybe that's why I needed a rest, because it did have an effect on me watching all that this morning. But I'm looking at the officer and how they go from 0 to 1,000
real quick
in a second over nothing. Over nothing. Even in the schools, I watched an officer over a young girl, 13-year-old girl, that approached her aggressively and yelling and screaming. And then you don't think the child is going to respond in like kind? She responded respectfully, but with some tone, as anybody would that would come at them like that. And then he made demands of her that she felt were unreasonable, and she just questioned the demands, and with no premise, that I'm looking for this or I'm looking for that, I want to get a better understanding of this. He just responded to her and then took her, man, threw her on the floor. 13-year-old girl. Threw her on the floor, flipped her over, put his knee in her back to handcuff her. I'm like, what kind of man are you that you got to do that to a 13-year-old?
No, that's
you felt threatened by?
No, but that makes no sense. But Coach, and this is actually to Gene as well, because I know what I'm going to bring up actually happened, if I remember correctly, in his neck of the woods and all along those lines. But because of the trauma and because of what goes on and because of certain institutions, and I can say this because I've actually got a cousin that is in that institution. I've told y'all before, I've got a cousin that's a GBI officer. I've got friends that are in our local Durham, North Carolina police force and all in that space. But I do sometimes worry when our own brothers do that. And that's what I was thinking about, even though that whole incident in Tennessee, those were all brothers that did that whole number on that gentleman and everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes that trauma is so deep that it even impacts people in our own community that they are falling into. I heard one of y'all use the overseer mentality, and they're falling into that overseer mentality.
Right. Exactly.
Because I think those people think that is the norm, the acceptable norm. That's how we should look at people of black and brown color, even though that person has the same color as you.
Right.
So my scenario I just gave you was the exact same thing. It was a black officer, SRO in the school, that did this to a young black girl, and it was unbelievable. And the terror. See, this time I watched I watched it over and over and over, but I watched the terror in the hearts and minds of those children that witnessed that.
Right.
And they're screaming and hollering. I think one was her brother, and one was like her best friend, this girl, other girl, and they're screaming the terror in their faces. I read something the other day regarding the Israeli and Palestinian situation, and it talked about, and it was, I mean, I won't even jump into all of that, but it broke my heart because it was saying it had a man holding his dead child, and it said, "What is the quickest way to create a terrorist?"
Yeah, exactly.
To kill his innocent son.
Yep.
And that stuck with me, man, so hard, because I'm thinking about all the black men, all the black women that have witnessed their sons and daughters murdered in the streets of this country at the hands of law enforcement, unarmed, unprovoked.
Supposed to serve and protect.
No problem.
Right. But yet we turn the other cheek.
Right.
What scares me though, bro, is what happens to the day and the time, the hour when people of black and brown color say enough is enough, and we stop turning the other cheek.
But Coach, I think we already saw that, and you kind of alluded to it. I know that's a whole different topic, and we sometimes get into it, even with our news and everything on our news shows and everything. But well, I do not forgive what Hamas did on October 7th. We also have to think, what did Israel do? And that's kind of what led to that and everything. Right. And so the same thing can be said here, because everybody wants to condemn that organization, and rightfully so, because that was a terrorist act at a musical festival. But also you have to remember that that whole area has been under siege, as far as they're concerned, for decades and everything. So that kind of creates what you're talking about, which is that backlash. And then they wonder, it's like, if you step on a man long enough and then he decides to buck off the system and go back, then you wonder, why is he fighting back, and why is he fighting back so militantly when you kind of created the environment?
You hit the point. Go ahead, Gene.
No, you finish. I'm sorry.
No, because I was talking. I'll wait, because I want to jump into that.
Well, I was just going to say, like, across history, even in the Americas, we have people like, Fred Hampton, Senior, and the Philadelphia bomb crew. Black Tulsa across the United States. Yeah, exactly. So there have always in history. I mean, we have a whole slave revolt that caused the Civil War. You dig what I'm saying? Like, let's be honest. Let's look at history. It was the slave revolt that caused the Civil War. It wasn't, slavery is bad for the North or the South. They didn't care. These are people with money already.
Right.
It was the people who were impoverished and enslaved that fought back and caused that civil war between the two factions of the South and the North. That eventually, the Emancipation Proclamation that really didn't mean. Anyway, I mean, we can go on history a long time, man. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. All I was going to say was, it's hard for me to understand what the fuel of all the anger is. As a black man, it's hard for me to understand what fuels. Why do you look at me and just be so angry? What fuels that? What makes you think you're greater than me? What makes you think I'm subservient to you? What makes you think I have to be beneath your feet? Or what makes you think I don't deserve the same privileges that you do, or opportunities that you do? which kind of leads into the next point when we're talking about microaggressions. Microaggressions are subtle, everyday acts of discrimination that target an individual's race or ethnicity. I mean, for us as men, black men and brown men, those might include comments like, now you get this all the time. You just said this, Gene. You're so articulate for a black man.
Right.
Yep.
Or, why are your people so loud?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then just remarks like that over time, along with the physical violence, just set you over the edge, and then they sit back and can't understand. Why are you angry? Why are you upset? Why are you frustrated?
Coach Eugene, or and not that I have it, because I'm actually the stereotype the opposite way, because unfortunately there's a reason that I don't do the same thing that Gene does, because there's the stereotype of we all got rhythm and we all can play an instrument and everything, but there's those backhanded compliments. So if you do something that falls within that stereotype, if you're a good cook, or if you're something that falls within that, if your chicken is on the A game and all along those lines, then there's those backhanded compliments.
Good for a black man,
oh,
yes.
Yeah.
It's a black man's chicken. What?
So it just builds layers upon
Right.
layers upon layers.
Right. Yeah. Man, there was a point I wanted to raise earlier.
I know I kind of see it on you. Spit it out, bro.
I'm trying to remember where I was going. Keep going. It'll come to me.
Regarding the microaggressions.
It was like a mixture of the first 2 points. Man.
Well, and it's just amazing how so many of these blend together.
Right.
Even because number 3 is denied opportunities,
Right.
which jumps right into microaggressions too. Just another form.
Right.
Men of color may face systematic barriers that limit their access to education, employment, and other opportunities. So again, another discussion I was having with the person I was dating, and she just couldn't understand. So again, this is kind of what I was talking about before. Now, some of those opportunities haven't been denied to me personally, and some have. But just the mere fact that I might have to face those obstacles simply because of the color of my skin is completely ridiculous.
But Coach, along those same lines, because we dealt with it here in Durham, which is one of the Black Wall Streets. I've dealt with it personally and everything. Is that you've also got the denied opportunities because, as a friend of mine, even when I did one of the lectures, because I was talking about some of the racism that went on and some of the people that sold out our community, that there's an old saying that all skin folks ain't kin folks, meaning that just because you got the same skin don't mean that y'all are all related the way that you think you are, and all in that space. And I know that when I first got into journalism and went to a newspaper, I went down, and my one and only, well, I can't say one and only, but one of the few daily newspapers that I worked at was down in Florida. And there was a brother down there, and he liked being the big fish in a small pond. So he definitely put barriers there to not just myself, but the Latin lady that was working for as another minority. So sometimes we can be our own worst enemies, because instead of encouraging the brothers that are coming up behind you and trying to help them build up, you like being that big fish in the small pond, and you do everything to undermine what could have been a positive experience. And I'm sure you've dealt with that, Gene. I'm sure you've dealt with that as well, Coach, where there are brothers or sisters that are your worst enemies when they should be your best allies.
Right. Yeah.
My grandfather used to call that crabs in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
That ring a bell with y'all?
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. So as you rise up, I got to step over you. And as you rise, I'm going to pull you down.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Always that ebb and flow.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, again, what stirs in me in that discussion is, why is that? Why? I remember, and Mark, you probably relate to this. When I was I'm 53. So when I was younger, as a 10 or so or under, I remember the pride in the Black community. And then, my grandfather talking about different things, my grandmother talking about different things, and just seeing, like, they lived in a little small town, but just seeing how there was so much pride in our community, how we stuck together as a family. And I think when I look back on history, probably I would say, Mark, you might know this a little bit better. Maybe when we got to about the 60s, that was a significant change in the Black community when housing, which was supposed to be help, was introduced, and aid and stuff like that. Then you come.
Well, a couple of things came to my mind as you were saying that. One, there was definitely a pride in the community. Like I said before, I've done some of these history talks and have become kind of the historian or one of the historians for the cultural arts center that I work at, the Hayti Heritage Center and everything. But the person that did it before me was a gentleman named Skippy Scarborough. His family owned and they still own one of the top funeral homes here in the area and everything. So it was a family legacy. But he talked about how during the Black Wall Street, you could see brothers walking down the street and, versus not knocking those that got their latest sneakers, but they were almost dressed to the nines, like they were going to
all the
work
time
and everything all the time. That's what
all
he
the
talked
time.
about. He talked about how if they were going to the store, they might be dressed to the nines and everything. So it was like the norm is the way that Skippy described it. Whereas now it's like, special occasions. You're going out to a wedding, you're going out to a dinner, but it's not the norm the way that he describes it and all along those lines. So he definitely talked about what you just said. There was more pride and even pride in our businesses because there were a number of businesses that were out there. And the other thing that I just learned, which I didn't realize, and I know that this is more regional than what we are, and it's more of a national and international show. But even here in Durham, when I think of it kind of comes back to that welfare conversation because when I come to housing, I'm usually thinking of it as being a predominantly our neighborhood. So it's one of those stereotypes because we always think that the public housing is our neighborhoods and everything. But the public housing, because there were two prominent ones. There was Few Gardens here in Durham and there was McDougal Terrace. McDougal Terrace is like maybe a block from here. I could literally go outside and throw a rock at it. That was actually the Black public housing. But at the time public housing was set up, there was a white public housing. It became Black, but when it was originally set up, it was white public housing. Right. So there were two public houses here in Durham, and they were segregated. But they both eventually became both African American, kind of became the center of a lot of the crime and all in that. But at the time they were created separately. But I didn't even realize that until I'd gone to somebody else's speech. It wasn't mine; it was somebody else. And I'm going like, "Whoa, I didn't know that." So we learned new things as well.
Yeah. And welfare was created for poor rural whites initially. So that's how that system got started. Not for us.
But so stay in that vein, Gene and Mark, what happened? Because again, when you study history, as Mark, you just said, I love that part of history, like even a boxing match or a baseball game or a football game, and you see the brothers and sisters in their suits and their ties and their top hats and all of that. What happened? Can you I know it's not one thing, but Mark being the historian, Gene, I know you do a lot of research on this stuff too. What happened? What turned us around? I mean,
I think a
was it just
I think it was a combination of things. I think gentrification definitely hurt us, and that gentrification and the destruction of our neighborhoods, which wasn't done accidentally, it was done intentionally and all in that space. I think some sellouts happened as well, which I kind of alluded to as well. And then I think people became so frustrated and disillusioned that they didn't really maintain that spirit the way that it used to exist and all in that spaces. So that, I mean, there's always disillusionment from generation to generation, but I think the disillusionment that happened in the 60s, and I would even argue the 70s and the 80s, was so sharp that it definitely put an impact and got people into a different mindset that I think people are just now slowly getting out of.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gene.
I absolutely agree with that. I also want to say that media played a huge part in it. All sources of media played a huge part in the decline of us living up to a certain standard and believing that, a lower standard is what it is. And you just, eventually we wear things that are less than or operate at a lower level. And then other times,
Gene, I was laughing because I was looking online and there were some people that were complaining, and I'm not gonna lie, I used to watch the shows and everything, but they were saying that they really did not like the Norman Lear created versions of us and everything, because after they got older and really started to think about what the Jeffersons and Sanford and Son and Good Times were about and everything, they really did not like it as much as they might have liked it as a kid, because they were seeing the narrative that was being put out there and everything.
Right. That is so good, Mark, to that point, because those were some of my favorite shows as a kid growing up. And now when, you're up late and you flipping through the channels and you see that, I initially respond, "Oh yeah, I want to watch that," but I get about 5 minutes in and I'm like,
Right.
I
See
can't watch this.
Right.
Yeah, because I understand the message that was trying to be sent.
Right.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And that further goes to what I was saying, like, and Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, said that there's no such thing as bad publicity. So anything you put out creates a narrative for the people that it's out there for. Not only the creators, but those who are the images putting out that thing. So, and it's crazy that you mentioned Good Times, because there's a animated version now out, and I saw a trailer and I'm like, I'm not watching that. Like, Esther Roll would be pissed off, and all the other, well, maybe not JJ, he just wants money probably. I'm messing around. But yeah, it's like it's crazy, just the buffoonery. Like, we continue it for ourselves, and then Norman Lear is a part of that as well. That's the crazy thing. Like, you're gonna continue putting out images of us being buffoons, lacking intelligence, lacking authenticity and things of that nature. Like, wow, it's what they call a culture vulture.
Ooh. Speaking the culture vulture.
Oh yeah, I know about those culture.
I'm sorry, what were you saying, Mark?
I said I know about those culture vultures. They exist even to this day and everything. So yeah, they will. I mean, some people would argue that certain rappers that take our music, and even certain blues artists that take our music and kind of use it for their own gains and everything, could be seen as culture vultures and everything. There's a certain one that has a rhythmic name that people love. Some people love them, but I can see what Eminem was doing and all along those lines, and some of the others even in the blues space and everything. So, if you acknowledge that that's what you're doing, then I don't have as much problem. That's why I have some respect for, like, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, because they acknowledge where they were getting the music from and everything. But you got others that don't acknowledge it as much as they should.
Elvis. Yeah, y'all in that era. So I mean, in the area.
Right, exactly.
So I could never get behind his music, because, as you just said, Mark, he didn't acknowledge where he got it from, as if he was the originator.
Right. Well, so, and this is, I unfortunately grew up watching Elvis movies. A babysitter that my mom had us going to had us watching those. That's how she kept us quiet. I'm just like, I don't want to see Elvis goes to the army. I don't want to see Elvis goes to Hawaii. Who cares? But from people who are here in Memphis, where I am, Memphis. Other way, there we go. So, they say that he did acknowledge that he got his music style. I mean, because he grew up in the hood. Here in Memphis. He grew up in the hood, right down the street from other black folks. It was a black neighborhood that he and his family lived in. So, I mean, you see this stuff going on all the time around you. So it's like, and from what they tell me, he did acknowledge. Now, I didn't see it because I don't like Elvis.
Yeah.
I could do without it.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, never have been. I'm a huge Beatles fan, though.
Oh yeah,
huge Beatles fan. And they said they follow Howlin' Wolf and all of them. So
the Beatles definitely acknowledged.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never really, to be honest, I've never really taken time to listen to the Beatles. I might have to do that.
Yeah. Do that.
Listening to you two, I nothing against them. I just have never taken the time to listen to their music. So I don't even follow their history of stuff. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, we can even go to a music that I think you and I know that Jean's mother listens to and everything. But while I am not knocking, because she's had some good songs, Amy Grant and all along those lines, but there's no doubt that Amy Grant was definitely borrowing from Black gospel, and I've never known her really acknowledge it as much as she probably should.
Yeah. So why is that the view of us is so negative and so bad and so subpar, But as you back to your culture vulture, you're so quick to steal the originality, our tone, our culture, our flavor, our savvy, our confidence, our swag, our intelligence from inventions. I was just thinking about what I read the other day about the liquor industry.
Yes, Jack Daniels,
Yeah, how all that was stolen.
Uncle Nearest, Uncle
Jack,
Nearest.
yep, Jack Daniels was stolen, and let's not be. There's an entire industry that is very, in my mind, and I'm not knocking it because it's North Carolina based, very, even though there are new drivers coming up that are even some of them are our sports leagues and everything, but it is still very white dominated. But the whole notion of what NASCAR is about, which was liquor running, is definitely from
Right,
some of our
right,
community and all along those lines.
exactly.
So definitely there was
Yep.
some great riders. I think Richard
Officiating.
Pryor played one
Yep.
of them and everything, but it didn't get the acknowledgement. And it is my understanding, and Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, because another thing that is popular, not so much in Tennessee, but one of our other southern states, and I've always said I wanted to go at some point, which is Kentucky and the horse racing. But I think some of those early jockeys were actually predominantly
Yes,
African American as well.
yes. So that was linked from my research. The jockey racing was based off of the Twa people having races to get away from,
Mm-hmm.
slaveholders and things of that nature, and it just became something they put onto a track. So
Wow.
yeah,
Now that's something I didn't know. That's good.
because I mean, you got to think about the Twa people. The Twa people, TWA, is the basis of the leprechaun legend in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
So when they say they chase the snakes out, this black people themselves, we are Kundalini people, which is the spine has a curve. I mean, there's a certain energy basis that goes through the body. Um, anyway, we are the people. We are the original people.
Oh, yeah.
We all
You know,
know that. And
but my
it was associated with wisdom. A snake is a symbol of wisdom and rebirth. We constantly evolve to become better versions of ourselves. So the snakes thing was based off of that. Nah, yeah, exactly. She's very right. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I was
but you know,
fortunate enough, Mom.
hey, but Gene, along those same lines, once I was talking to my aunt yesterday, and she said she'd heard something which I had not thought about. So, I Googled it, and she brought it up. My one of my mom's three sisters, one of them that passed. So, I mean, one passed, and now it's got two remaining ones. So, mom's got the three of them, three of her four. There are four girls, is what I'm trying to say, but only the three of them are around now at this particular point. But my aunt Julie was telling me that she had recently read, or maybe she saw it on YouTube or something, the notion that cornrows, which is a popular hairstyle, was actually a way to help the slaves escape. So it's actually like a map, which I had not heard about. But then I
Wow.
read it, and I was like, yeah, it's actually true that the cornrows were actually almost like a map to show the routes.
Ingenious.
Yep.
Ingenious.
Exactly. We did whatever we had to do.
Right.
I found this on the
We
web.
followed the stars. I mean, like every science, every government way of like democracy was based off of the Moors in France. Like everything that's created in this world was created by us. So to go back to that's what I was going to say. So the big thing is that it's a
Uh-oh, there it is.
yeah. I'm gonna have to say this, and whoever is Caucasian in nature, no disrespect intended, but these are historical facts. We are the originators of this world. So everything that has, and that's why they keep taking our style, our flow, the way we do things, and mass market it. These are things that we do in our neighborhoods every day without thinking about it. And for them, that's a product because they don't have the same soul, same creative energy. Like, and again, they don't have the ability to create like we do. We are the creators. They mirror.
Oh, they
Mirror. Wow.
But one of the things that they don't mirror, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts around this and everything, is that there is no way that you can tell me that 14% of the population, I'm making up some numbers here, and when I give service figures, because I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but there's no way that you can tell me that 14 to 15% roughly of the population make up or have committed 75 to 80% of the crimes in America and all along those lines. But the court system is so corrupt that that's what it would be seems to be the case. Because if you go to any prison, the prisoners are majority black and brown. Am I not incorrect in that?
Correct.
Along those lines? But we only make up about 15 to 20% of the population. So that doesn't make logical sense to me.
Right. It's absolute BS, and it actually goes right into the next point, number 4.
I was right. You thinking just like I was.
Exposure to racist abuse in the media can trigger racial trauma. For example, witnessing police violence against unarmed black people can evoke strong emotional reactions. These portrayals reinforce negative stereotypes and contribute to the trauma experienced by men and women of color.
So again, in researching this, I was looking at different articles of some mass shootings. You know, the one there in the South where I can't even remember his name, the gentleman, can't even call him a gentleman because he's a terrorist, walked into the church and how
Dylan Roof.
Okay, and how they embraced him. But you just talked about our energy and how we read energy. They could tell that the young man was troubled and tried to offer him care and love. And then he pulls out a gun and kills 9. I think it was 9 people.
9. Yep. South Carolina. Yep.
Right. So it's just situations like that. So it had a list of on the top of this article of 3 white terrorists that had killed. They had their body count of people that they had killed in the South, and then 3 black men on the bottom that had no body count but were dead.
Yep.
Like one of them was Carcelio, I think his name, in Minnesota.
Casillo,
that was sitting in his car, and the officer asked for his license. He reaches for his license, and his gun down in his car.
And he said that I have a gun.
Mm-hmm.
He said that I have a gun, but he wasn't pulling it.
Right.
The officer asked him for his wallet. He asked first, "Do you have a weapon?" He said, "Yes, I do." "Let me see your license." He said, "Yes, I do, but I'm registered." He said, "Let me see your license." He said, "Okay, I'm reaching for it now." He reached in the pocket. He told him where the gun was.
Right. Got permission.
He that pocket, and the cop shot him right there in the chest.
Right. Mind you, I'm going to say, you just finished it, that his girlfriend was in the driver's seat and his daughter in the back seat to watch her father be executed. Back to my point earlier, how do you create a terrorist?
Yeah.
This country has become the master at creating terrorists.
Across the globe.
We do it. Yeah, I was just about to say, we don't do it just here in America on our home soil. We do that very well across the world.
Yep.
It's scary. That media, so you can almost know when a crime here in Kansas City is committed and it pops on the news before they even show whether it's a white person or a black or brown person that committed the crime.
Right.
Because the different tones of words and pictures that are going to be shown. If it's a black or brown person, you're going to get a mugshot. You're going to get the verbiage of he was a violent offender, or this is multiple offenses, or whatever. And if it's a white person, you're going to get, they might have just murdered 20 people.
Or mentally disturbed.
And then you're going to talk about mental illness, or showing him a picture in the choir, or hugging babies, or whatever. I'm just like, it's just madness.
Media deceptions of racism.
Right.
Speaking of perceptions, did y'all get, and I forgot what it was called here, but I remember before the pandemic, there was a, basically it was the Mugshot magazine. You could find it in your corner store and all along those lines. I think it's all, huh?
We got it here too, yep.
So you know what I'm talking about, because they have one you can.
Sure do.
Say that again, I missed that.
It's basically in the South. There's basically what I call mugshot magazines. You would go there and it'll be a gas station. I forgot the name of the one here in North Carolina, but it will literally have all the pictures of the mugshots from the different things that are there. It's almost like the most wanted poster that you see at the post office, but it's actually a magazine, and it will have hundreds, and I mean hundreds of pictures of people that are wanted. They haven't even actually been convicted in some cases yet, but it's kind of like their way of putting them on notice, for lack of a better term. But like I said, that I figured it was in other states like Tennessee and other places. But I know here in North Carolina and even in Virginia, you can go to just about any gas station and you can grab a copy. At least before the pandemic, I haven't been by a gas station in a while, like particularly in the hood and everything. But definitely, you could run into those magazines regularly. And there was a nickname for them, but I've got the nickname.
Yeah, we got them here.
Well, what's going on too with so I don't know what's going on in you guys' cities, but here in Kansas City, there's been several cases 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I think the longest was 54 years that I saw. And then in doing research throughout this week, I saw a gentleman who had been incarcerated for assault against two sisters and was acquitted after 44 years.
We just had one.
Yeah, after 44 years, and their response, the two ladies, knowing this was not the person that did this to them.
Wow.
Their response was, well, at least we got 44 years.
Oh, their response was they got 44 years of the conviction, even though he wasn't guilty.
Right.
But I mean, that
completely
comes
innocent
down,
the entire time.
I mean, but that comes down. I mean, we can go down a whole nother alley and not even have to deal with the black-white side of it and everything. But that even comes down to like our current presidential candidate, who literally said that he could go down there and shoot somebody and kill them, and nobody would pay any attention. And based on the way his popularity is going and the possibility that he might be president again, it is very much the case and everything. Because I remember that quote, and also the way he vilified the Central Park Five, even though they were proved to be innocent.
That was going to be one of my points. So yeah, that's when I talked about the media, and
and the same thing with the situation with the white woman who was the supposed recipient of a whistle from Emmett Till.
Right.
You know, we had that, you know, in our history as well. Like, and she says, you know, on her deathbed that he was absolutely innocent. You know, like this is a diabolical history here as it pertains to men and women of color, brown, you know, black, brown, and so on and so forth.
But Gene, but then they do mental trips, because part of what I talk about on this history tour is that this particular building is a old historical African American church. I mean, the church itself exists in another part of the building, not that far from here, maybe a mile or two down the road. But it is an AME church, and if you are familiar with universities, you know who Duke University is, and you know who Mr. Duke is. So Mr. Duke literally has a stained glass picture still in the building that is of higher prominence than Jesus Christ himself. Jesus Christ has got, I think, 2 stained glass pictures, but Mr. Duke, when he decided to help fund the church when they were building it or needing some funding, said, yes, I will give you the money if you will put my stained glass even of that above Jesus Christ. So imagine if you are a person going to church in the 1900s or even before the 1960s, when it kind of went out of business because of gentrification, and you are hearing this powerful sermon about Christianity and this powerful sermon about Jesus, and you have got that white figure staring above you. And that even comes down to the white Jesuses that many of us have seen in our grandparents' homes and all along those lines. So whether it is a figurative Jesus figure like Mr. Duke, or whether it is an actual figure like the white depiction of Jesus that we saw in our houses, just imagine what that does to your mindset and your own racial relations and your own trauma. So that's a form of trauma in and of itself.
Yes.
Yeah, every time you see it, it's trauma.
Yeah. Religious, I mean, that's religious trauma right there. I mean, you know, I mean, come on now. And really, I mean, at the time, like even the Romans were brown-skinned people. When people around the time of supposed Jesus was born and executed. So, you know, like that depiction alone, just showing a white Jesus in a black neighborhood, just showed you that the person who was outside of you, who is your oppressor, is the one that you're supposed to pray to and be subservient to. So that's definitely a psychological and traumatic blow.
Well, Roots came on TV the other day on one of the little backward
Watch
channels.
it.
It was hard, man. It was hard, but again, trying to research for the show,
Yeah.
and I mean, just to see how when you introduce religion into it, and how the Bible was taken out of context and
Yeah,
taught
Deuteronomy.
right in ways that made us feel like we were destined for that, destined
Right,
for the slavery,
right,
you know, and that we had to be subservient, that we were the less than.
right.
Um, and I would say that's why our young people in today's recent times fight against, because now that they've done a little research in history, that's why they don't want anything to do with Christianity.
Right.
And that, for me as a minister, breaks my heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because for me, their
Yeah.
answer is Christ. And he looks more like what you think he looks like. You know, you've been duped, you've been fooled and hoodwinked, all those words.
Bamboozled.
Yeah, I love that when people say that stuff.
No, but in that same space, just think about all the images of how Jesus was depicted, or even Cleopatra, or a number of others. I mean, how you going to have an Elizabeth Taylor looking Cleopatra when we all know that Cleopatra was
He was
very
black as this.
brown complexion and
Right,
all
right.
those lines? But you're going to have Elizabeth Taylor, who is as fair skinned as you can get, portraying her way back in the day and everything. And you're going to have people like Charlton Heston portraying Moses and everything.
Right.
Like, a lot of these made no logical sense whatsoever.
I would love to see on that line, you know, a Tyler Perry or, you know, somebody of his caliber do the research, do the history research, and do a new Roots or do a new Moses, you know, all these different historical movies, but make them accurate with,
Right.
you know, black actors and actresses and the real history.
Let's
I
go to
don't,
Jordan Peele.
yeah, I don't understand why things like that haven't been done yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's slow and it's small. Like, for instance, the movie that the actor Lakeith Stanfield just did, The Book of Clarence. It kind of gives this. So it's like it's very tongue in cheek, and I love it.
Good.
It's like you know, they have Clarence as Jesus and Thomas as his brother, and Thomas means twin. But then, like, at the last moment, you have this vagabond, you know, white Jesus, this like so dirty that his face is black. You get him washed down and stuff, and his hair is, you know, permed and straightened and whatnot. And then because he is supposed to be a Messiah based off of the Clarence character, he gets executed as well. But he's like, no, I'm a poor man. But so, like, with that alone, just the true Jesus was a man of color, you know. And I mean, this history is so funny. If you really go back and look at it, like the way they would tell stories, it's always the people who had the power.
Right.
Always the people who were left who told the story of another person's history.
Right.
So when you're able to get those little tidbits of history from those people who actually existed at the time, who were the conquered, then you get the true story. And
well, I get that. I'm the rebel though, and I believe one person can make a difference.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
So, like, one of the things that I do is called hashtag recall a Black History moment. So occasionally you'll see me post on social media with that hashtag with information as I come across things that are historic. Because I mean, you're not gonna silence my voice on history and the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. Because I think we need to know it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's sad that a kid can get on social media and learn in social media. Let's just say Facebook. Right. That was my point. That you can learn more on true, authentic Black history on Facebook than you can in a classroom in an American school.
Yeah, that is very scary and everything. And I know we've got a few more minutes and we can go over and all along those lines. But I was going to say the one thing, and this is actually for you, Jane, and everything, that I found very touching earlier today and everything. There was actually a gentleman that was watching his daughter. Was watching his daughter because actually his daughter had lost a bottle and all in that. I think she was here for one of the dance classes. She might have been here for the camp. But one of the things that I saw, because y'all hear me speak oftentimes about the importance of getting out in nature and enjoying nature and all along those lines. But it was a young lady, because there is a rails, like the rails of a step that are outside and everything. And she had found, along with her two young friends, these young ladies were probably all preteens, a ladybug. So they had actually spent about 20 or 30 minutes trying to catch the ladybug. They didn't have any luck, because the last time I went out, as I was doing some outside errands, like with the garbage and all along those lines, I asked them, and they were like, "No, we didn't catch the ladybug. The ladybug flew in our face, but we spent a lot of time trying to catch the ladybug." So it was just interesting seeing that moment, and it was really good because the gentleman who was the father was down there talking to another parent that was a mother of another kid. But it was the three young ladies, and they were all probably between 13 and 16, 13, 12, 15, if I was to guess their age and everything. But it was just wonderful seeing that family moment. We talk about negative trauma. That was a moment of positive trauma. Like I said, she didn't catch the ladybug, and ladybugs can be very small, but just the fact that they were sitting there trying to catch the ladybug, and because I even asked her, "What are y'all trying to do?" They're like, "We're trying to catch the ladybug." I'm like, "What you gonna do with it?" Like, "Oh no, just want to catch it."
Right. I remember doing that as a kid.
Yeah, I still do it to this day. Like I have ladybugs land on me at times when I'm outside. I'm just like, hey, Nate, and that's how you tune into yourself more. You get out in nature, just experience fresh air and watch nature as it exists without being interrupted by man. Mm-hmm. Just observe, and then it also helps you tune into yourself, tune into the God source. When you see how everything has its place, everything has its time, everything has its own vibration and energy. So if you just allow yourself to tune into that, and then reflect that onto yourself and realize, okay, I have that as well, then it helps you be a whole being, as opposed to compartmentalize, well, I'm this or I'm that. No, I'm everything, because I realize that everything works in concert with each other.
Yeah. And then to that same line, it can be small animals. Like I said, these young ladies were doing it with the ladybug, but I know that sometimes I'll probably even see them when I get ready to leave here in about 30 minutes. But there is a group of a little bit confused geese. But if you know, geese are not exactly small animals, so they're literally going to be down there because there's a water pond or creek that's nearby. So they will probably be down there hanging around trying to find whatever prey and things that they can find for their supper and everything. But yeah, it's been interesting because I was joking. You'll get a kick out of this, Gene. I was joking with the bus driver. I think it was a few days ago, and all along those lines, because I saw them walking toward the bus terminal while I was getting on the bus, and I told the bus driver, I was like, I think they're trying to get off, but I don't think they have fare. The buses are free now anyway, so they didn't really need fare. But I was like, I don't think that they can ride with us. But it was just interesting watching those big geese, because geese can be some very big animals.
Oh
yeah.
And aggressive if you mess with them.
Yep.
Well, I got to say though, especially what you just said, Gene. I mean, these are some hard things that bring up even to the level of secondary degree trauma for Black and brown people, the things we've talked about today. But you just gave us some points that leave us with hope in Mark 2, that we can get out into nature, we can find ourselves, our inner selves, to find that peace, to overcome these traumas. I mean, all the things that we've talked about in the past few weeks are still relevant in this space. But real talk, this is probably the source of a lot. The core. We've talked about so many other traumas, but this is probably the core of the trauma that we experience. You can't even talk about relationships and all the other things until you address this.
And then, but Coach, are they interrelated? Because when you were thinking about, and I know we didn't get everything that you had and planned and everything, but even when you think about the racial trauma, I think about the trauma of how that can play into advancement. We know that our sisters oftentimes are not advanced as much as they should be and aren't paid nearly as much as they should get and all in that space. But I also know that happens in the African-American space, because I remember there was a job I had, and I'm now a team leader in that job now, but I remember in a earlier time frame where there was, I hate to put it, but I'll just be blunt, the little white blondie that had just come into the office that got advanced quicker than the brothers and the sisters, because she was a little bit closer to the identity of leadership and all in that space. And so that even happens to this day and everything. So like I said, I remember a case where literally there were people, myself included, that had been with that particular company for years, and if in some cases decades, and she comes fresh out of college, and next thing we're looking around and they're going like, she's your new supervisor. And we're going like,
right.
Oh, how'd you get to be a supervisor? You just got here.
Right. Well, that falls under denied opportunities.
Yep.
So that just adds to the frustration and the hopelessness and overall the trauma.
Right.
So another great show, gentlemen.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. That's an amazing conversation. I think we'll get ready to go out with one of Gene's songs. I figure out which one we're going to play. I can't remember which one I got on this one and all along those lines. But it's been another powerful conversation. Always glad to join you.
Stand up would be perfect, actually.
Huh? Stand up?
Yeah.
Let's do
stand up. Okay.
Let's do stand up.
It's your boy, Coach G. We out.
Let's go.
That's
Mark. Peace.
The police took another life. Gunshots rang out, even though he had his hands held high. Yo, I'm sick and tired to walk my brother's short lines. Need to come together, set a plan, and then mobilize. Oh, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about all the hell that we're going through? Now stand up, shout out into the walls of Babel on the feet. Stand up, come on y'all, and let's make some history. Stand up, rise up and know you ain't gotta follow, you can lead. Stand up y'all, we can do this, you and me. Monsanto monopolized the whole grocery line. So we all gon' have 12 toes, 3 thumbs, 3 lives. If we keep being sheep, these wolves are gon' rob us blind. Let's occupy our mind space, cause the revolution won't be televised. Oh, what are we gon' do? What are we gon' do? What are we gonna do about all the hell that we're going through? Now stand up, shout out into the walls of Babel on the feet. Stand up, y'all, we can do this, you and me. Stand up, rise up and know you ain't gotta follow, you can lead. Stand up, y'all, we can do this, you and me. Oh, mercy, mercy me. The government should nurture sympathy. When will all these wars be done? Hopefully before another moment has the money. Yeah. Before another mother has the one person. Shout out into the walls of Babel on the feet. Stand up, come on y'all, and let's make some history. Stand up, rise up, you know you ain't gotta follow, you can lead. Stand up y'all, we can do this, you and me. Stand up, shout out into the walls of Babel on the feet. Stand up, come on y'all, and let's make some history. Stand